evening. And it is a very good evening indeed because we have a very good book on review. So, welcome all of you readers, all of you book lovers. Thank you for coming to this session. Today we have Sheena Shahani as our presenter, and Sheena is always fantastic, with her. Yes, Sheena, I'm going to say she's always fantastic in her choice of book, in the actual presentation, the artwork in her presentation, and her very, very close and brilliant reading of the text. So we look forward, Sheena, to more of the same today. Sheena I first met Sheena when she lived in Dubai. She comes from journalism and HR, that kind of world. She still, I think, spends quite some time in Dubai, but she is stationed in Pune. And so, she's close at hand. And today she's chosen this book by Haruki Murakami, Kafka by the Shore. Now, it's such an intriguing title that I really want to know about it. And Murakami is a writer who never ceases to amaze me. With his imagination, my goodness, the things that man can think of, I'm absolutely floored at times. So, Sheena, we look forward to this very interesting book and your reading of it. So, I hand over the mic to Sheena. The session is being recorded. And now I think we should all mute ourselves. And I think I also switch off our videos and let Sheena and her presentation be the only thing visible on the screen. Sheena, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. I must add to what Moini said, I have read this book about 3 times.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So, and I enjoyed every time. It's so refreshing. Okay. So, Kafka on the Shore, today's book, was published in Japanese in 2002 and in English in 2005, translated by Philip Gabriel, instantly becoming one of the 10 best books of 2005, but on the US bestseller list. Haruki Murakami, the author of Kafka on the Shore, is a Japanese novelist, short story writer, translator, and publishing phenomenon whose deeply imaginative and often ambiguous books have become international bestsellers. Kafka OTS, a fantasy and crime novel, is considered among his major works. Since childhood, Murakami has been heavily influenced by Western culture, particularly Western as well as Russian music and literature. He grew up reading a wide range of works by European and American writers such as Franz Kafka, Flaubert, Dickens, Vonnegut, Fyodor Dostoevsky, and Jack Kerouac. These Western influences distinguish Murakami from the majority of other Japanese writers and abound in his novels. He started his career first as a record shop owner, and then he ran a jazz bar before launching into full-time writing. Murakami's most recent novel, The City and Its Uncertain Walls, was published in Japan in 2023. It will be released in English this November, and fans like me are eagerly awaiting it. His first novel in 6 years, it is 1,200 pages long, even longer than 1Q84, and is set in a soul-stirring 100% pure Murakami world. So, what is Haruki Murakami's world? In Kafka on the Shore, Murakami's world employs mysticism, magic, metaphysics, metaphors to unfurl a fantasy. This is a world where, I need to go back. This is a world where dream merges with reality and vice versa, where parallel universes collide, where the supernatural overlaps into the mundane, and where the forces of good and evil are playing out their perennial battle. So for convenience and ease of understanding, I have divided the characters into 4 groups. There are many minor ones, but these are the major ones. So there are the 2 main guys, the protagonists, Kafka Tamura, of the title, he is 15 years old. And Satoru Nakata, he is 65 years old. And then there is a boy called Crow, which is the alter ego of Kafka Tamura. A bit about each of the two main characters. Kafka Tamura is one of the two protagonists of the novel, serving as the narrator for half of the chapters in the book. He does the odd numbered chapters in the first person. Satoru Nakata is the other of the two protagonists of the story, also featuring as a subject of the other half of the chapters in the book, the even numbered chapters. Unlike Kafka's chapters, Nakata's chapters are written in the third person because Nakata refers to himself always in the third person. He calls himself by his name. So, for example, he will say, Nakata is not very bright. Nakata likes mackerel. Nakata does not understand. Nakata cannot read, you see. Nakata is dumb, etc. And that makes him such a self effacing and endearing and lovable character. He's my favorite character in the book. Both Kafka and Nakata are societal misfits. Kafka is a junior high student and he does not mingle with classmates his age, and he has not made any friends. Nakata, being a man with a disability, is a special needs person also with no friends. Then we have the guardian angels, as I call them. Oshimo for Kafka, he's a transgender librarian, and Hoshino for Nakata, he's a long distance truck driver. These two characters are heaven sent and help our protagonists in many things, such as dodging the police, for example. Why they have to dodge the police, I will come to later. The sister and mother figures for Kafka: Sakura, a teenage girl, and Miss Psyche, a librarian in her 50s. And then lastly, and these are fun, there are the abstractions or concepts: Johnny Walker and Colonel Sanders, the famous iconic capitalistic figures from the worlds of Scotch whiskey and deep fried chicken, respectively. They take on human form. Japanese folk literature is full of spirits and souls, some vengeful and others benevolent. Likewise, there is a lot of good and evil at play in this story, as I mentioned earlier. And then, how can I forget the cats? Meet the feline cast: Otsuka, Kawamura, Mimi, Goma, Okawa. These cats have been given their names by Satoru Nakata, who is a cat lover and who is able to talk to them. He actually communicates with cats and they communicate with him. The Japanese as a race love cats. There is a cat hotel in Tokyo which has 2 stories for cats to board. They even have a cat island, which is a tourist attraction, so called owing to its large stray cat population that thrives there as a result of the local belief that feeding cats will bring wealth and good fortune. The cat population is now larger than the human population on that island. So the Japanese both fear and revere cats like Hindus do with serpents. Cats have been present in Japanese ancient and modern literature. There are favorite cartoon and anime cat characters. They are symbols of good luck. Our author also loves cats, and so he has populated Kafka on the show with several cats. But these are no ordinary cats. These are cats that talk to humans. See, we all talk to our pets, but when I say talk, the felines and the human Nakata actually communicate with one another. He is an illiterate man with exceptional talents. The last time Kafka Tamura looks at a clock in his Tokyo home, it is 3 p.m. on the eve of his 15th birthday. And then he runs away. One half of this novel is the story of that runaway boy. As the book opens, it seems to the reader that two characters are having a conversation in a study. One of them is called the boy named Crow. The other is Kafka Tamura, and this is his father's study in Tokyo. Kafka lives in this huge mansion in Tokyo, in Nagano district. Kafka has decided that he will run away from his home in Tokyo on his 15th birthday, and that happens to be today, the day the book opens. Crow, an imagined persona whom Kafka consults for advice when he finds himself in stressful situations, cautions Kafka to be tough and strong. Crow is Kafka's alter ego, sometimes playing devil's advocate, representing a tougher, wiser version of Kafka himself. Someone, I think it's Archana, called him Kafka's conscience. Kafka packs a Swiss knife, a cell phone belonging to his father, 400,000 yen in cash, about US dollars 2,500, and a picture of himself and his older sister. There is some background noise.
There's one person who's not now. She's
Huh. And I'll read that again. Kafka packs a Swiss knife, a cell phone belonging to his father, 400,000 yen in cash, about $2,500, and a picture of himself and his older sister on the beach from when Kafka was little. He also packs a toilet kit, a Discman. This was the year 2000. Some CDs, some books, and very few clothes. This 15-year-old loves the Beatles, Eric Clapton, Prince, Duke Ellington, and Led Zeppelin, among others. We learn from this conversation that Kafka is having with Crow, he's actually talking to himself, that his father is very strict and cruel. And he's running away to escape Tamura Sr.'s dark Oedipian prophecy that Kafka will kill his father and sleep with his mother and sister. There is a little issue here. Kafka's mother left home with his sister when Kafka was just 4. And he hasn't seen her since. He doesn't know the names of his mother and sister. There is no record of them in the family registry. It's as though they never existed. So this photograph is the only memory he has of them. So Kafka has spent years building up his physical and mental strength, training his mind and body to be able to escape his father and survive as a runaway. But he fears that no matter how far he runs, he will never be able to escape this dark omen that is programmed into him and follows him everywhere, that he will kill his father and sleep with his sister and mother. So someone also asked me why Kafka and why Crow. So Kafka notes that the name Kafka is an alias he chose for himself, in part because it means crow in the Czech language, and it probably signifies Kafka's urge to be free and to fly away. Like little crows, Crow sometimes appears to offer warnings or watch over Kafka in dangerous situations. Because he's a figment of Kafka's imagination, no one else can see or hear Crow. And this precocious teen is a huge fan of the author Franz Kafka, has read all his books and then some. His faves are The Metamorphosis, The Trial, and The Castle. So Kafka was preparing to run away ever since he was 13 years old. And these numbers are important in Kafka's life. So at 13, he decided to run away when he's 15. But when he's 15, he has to look 17 and not 15. So he was working towards his body and his physical looks to look big. Luckily for him, he's a tall lad and he built up some muscle, and he was able to look 17 the day that he ran away. So Kafka, being a loner, he's a loner. He doesn't get close to anyone. He never brought any friends home. He doesn't want to draw attention to himself. And even though he attends junior high in a top-notch school, where he will automatically be promoted to the next class, he's on top of his studies because he does not want to draw attention to himself. He's extremely private. In hindsight, this was very clever of him, because when the police come to his school for questioning, there is very little information that they can obtain by talking to his teachers and fellow students. In the intervening 2 years, as I said, he has worked on everything, and being a very smart boy, he has absorbed a lot of knowledge, and he used to visit the library a lot because he loves to read. So when he leaves home, he is like a little encyclopedia himself, and his love for reading will come in good stead later on in the novel. So running is a very bold move for a young lad who has never stepped outside of Tokyo in his whole life. And with only a backpack of these few possessions, Kafka gets on a bus bound for Takamatsu in Western Japan. I just Googled Takamatsu. It's about 750 kilometers away from Tokyo. So he decides to take a bus and not a plane because he does not again want any record of himself anywhere. On the journey, Kafka befriends a girl named Sakura, who is a few years older than him. He is attracted to her, but he worries, as he does with all women of Sakura's age, that she could be his long lost sister. Both Kafka and Sakura agree that chance encounters are important and possibly even the result of fate. When they arrive at their destination, Sakura gives Kafka her phone number. Kafka checks into a hotel and then visits the private Komura Memorial Library on which he had conducted research before leaving Tokyo. This library has a reputed collection of ancient manuscripts, rare books, and precious art. At the library, he meets Oshima, a well dressed young librarian who later reveals that he is a transgender man, and Miss Psyche, an extremely elegant middle aged woman who runs the library. Kafka is struck by the thought that she's the same age as his mother would have been, and she could be his mother. Over the next week, Kafka falls into a routine, spending mornings at a gym he has enrolled into, and in the afternoons, he reads in the library. No one asks him any questions. He and Oshima strike up a friendship. Then, on the 8th day after he has run away, disaster strikes. Cut to a different scene and time. It is the end of World War II. Murakami uses frequent perspective and tense shifts to craft his narrative, heightening the surrealism of the novel. In this flashback, conveyed in the format of declassified US military documents, the reader is introduced to a mysterious incident from the past. The documents from World War II, which are now in the public domain, tell the story of a mysterious incident which took place in 1944 when an elementary school teacher in the countryside took her class of children to pick mushrooms on a hill. Suddenly, all the children collapsed. The children were unconscious, but their eyes moved back and forth rapidly, almost as if their minds were experiencing something independently of their bodies. The teacher ran to get help, but the local doctor who examined them found himself mystified. Soon the children began to wake up on their own, apparently fine and without any memory of the incident. That is, all the children woke up except for one, Satoru Nakata, a studious young boy. He remained in a coma for weeks. Interviews with doctors and psychologists showed that Nakata's case baffled them. Nakata was then transported to a Tokyo hospital. Finally, Nakata too woke up on his own after some weeks, but unlike the other children, he had lost his memory entirely. His mind was like a blank slate, or like a bathtub unplugged and drained of water, or like a freight train with one of the carriages completely empty. He had even lost the ability to read or write, skills he never regained, and he's left with half a shadow. In his youth, Nakata found that he had skills in carpentry and he worked in a furniture factory. He also received, as an adult, a state subsidy for disabled people. In the present day, Nakata, now an old man in his mid-60s, is retired. As we meet him, he is sitting in a vacant lot in Tokyo, chatting with a black cat. Although he lost his memory and literacy in the childhood incidents, Nakata gained the special ability to talk to cats, a skill he now uses to supplement his state subsidy by getting some pocket money searching for lost pet cats. Right now, he's on the hunt for a cat named Goma, who has been missing for a few days. A Siamese cat called Mimi helps Nakata trace Goma to the grassy lot where she was last seen, and Nakata waits there, hoping she will reappear. Other cats warn him that an evil man in boots and a top hat has been showing up there, trapping cats and putting them in a sack and taking them away. Nakata sets up a lookout on this deserted ground. After a few days, a big, fierce dog shows up at the lot. And the dog talks to Nakata. Nakata hypnotically follows the dog to the grand home of a mysterious man dressed like the logo for Johnny Walker whiskey. Johnny Walker tells Nakata that he can help him find Goma, but only if Nakata will help Johnny Walker as well by killing him. Johnny Walker says he wants to die, and he reveals that he kills cats in order to collect their souls, which he is using to build a mystical flute. He even shows Nakata his industrial freezer where there are some 20 decapitated heads of cats. This Johnny Walker goads Nakata into killing him by telling him, "Unless you kill me, I will kill Goma and the other cats." In mounting horror, and this is one of the grisliest, most graphic, most gruesome, goriest parts of the book, Nakata watches as Johnny Walker beheads 3 other cats and chews and swallows their still beating hearts until he can no longer stand it. He stabs Johnny Walker with a kitchen knife and kills him. It's as though he's a man possessed. Then he gathers up Goma and Mimi, 2 cats which are still alive, whom Johnny Walker was about to kill, and walks away. He then returns to the grassy lot and becomes unconscious. When he comes to, he finds that his clothes are clean and there are no blood stains on his hands or on his body. However, he has lost his ability to talk to cats as neither Mimi nor Goma can understand him anymore. Nakata returns Goma to her family, collects his reward, and being the innocent, childlike, guileless soul that he is, he feels he must turn himself over to the police. So he goes to the nearest police box and he tells a policeman on duty that he has killed someone called Johnny Walker. And this is one of the funniest parts of the book. The policeman does not believe that this harmless old man has killed someone, especially when he predicts that fish will fall from the sky the next day. The cop on duty is waiting to get off work because he is meeting a buddy at the pub for drinks after work. He thinks that these are the ramblings of a crazy old geezer and he pays no heed. He does not bother to file an FIR. But the next day, when the dead body is discovered and sardines and mackerel do rain from the sky, about 2,000 pieces, the police launch a manhunt for this man. However, by now, Nakata is very far away. He has already left Tokyo because a voice in his head has told him that he needs to travel westwards. Meanwhile, back in Takamatsu, on the 8th day since he ran away, Kafka wakes up outside a Shinto shrine with much blood on his shirt and hands and no memory of the past 4 hours. He too has had a blackout. And with these 2 incidents, one in Tokyo and one in Takamatsu, Murakami tells his readers that there is a connection between Kafka and Nakata, who are both residents of Tokyo's Nakano ward. One lives in a fancy mansion and one in a subsidized apartment just 15 minutes away. They have never met ever, but they are connected. So my theory is this. It is Nakata who killed Johnny Walker, presumably a spirit who takes over Kafka's father's body, but it's Kafka who has blood on his hands. One conjecture is spirit projection, that Kafka's soul temporarily left his body, entered Nakata's body, and made him kill his father. So that's the first part of the prophecy that is fulfilled. Kafka knows that something bad has happened, and the next day he heads to the Komura library and he tells Oshima that he needs somewhere to stay. Oshima says that he will consult with Miss Psyche if Kafka can stay in the library. But in the meantime, he takes him to a remote cabin in the woods. This is owned by Oshima. It's his retreat. Kafka spends the next couple of days venturing into the labyrinth-like woods around the cabin, talking with Crow, and making peace with the overwhelming solitude of the forest. After a few days on the drive back to the library, Oshima tells Kafka that he and Miss Psyche have agreed that Kafka can live and work in the library. He also tells Kafka about Miss Psyche's past. Her childhood sweetheart died when they were both very young, and ever since then, Miss Psyche has been distant and listless. She has lost the will to live. She refuses to listen to Kafka on the Shore. This is a song that she wrote and recorded for her boyfriend when they were both 15 years old. In fact, Kafka is given the same room that Miss Psyche's boyfriend occupied as a teenager because Miss Psyche's boyfriend's family owns a library. Meanwhile, the old man Nakata hitchhikes west, getting a series of rides on different trucks. Lots of young people help this nice old man who talks funny, buying him meals, giving him gifts. Eventually, he meets and befriends Hoshino, a young truck driver who is aimlessly cruising through life. Hoshino finds himself drawn to Nakata and takes a few days off from work to help him get to Takamatsu, as Nakata reminds Hoshino of his grandfather who had died of cancer. Nakata says they must find the entrance stone. This is a mysterious white stone with magical properties that only Nakata knows about. This entrance stone needs to be opened and shut to restore balance in the universe. After days of searching in library books and tourist sites to no avail, Hoshino is approached by an old man who calls himself and dresses like Colonel Sanders of KFC. Colonel Sanders takes Hoshino to a Shinto shrine where he finds the entrance stone. In size, it is smaller to a car steering wheel. He then lugs the stone back to Nakata. They spend some time trying to figure it out and to determine what to do. And then Nakata says they must flip the stone over in order to open an entrance to another world. With tremendous effort, because the stone has become supernaturally heavy, Hoshino does so. Soon he decides that his relationship with Nakata is more important than returning to work. At the library, Oshima shows Kafka an article saying that a famous sculptor, Kafka's father, has been stabbed to death. And the body was found by the housekeeper when she came the next day. The corpse was naked and there were stab wounds on the body. Although he was not in Tokyo at the time of the murder, Kafka feels he was responsible. The police want to question the murdered man's son, and they managed to trace him to the library because he had used his father's cell phone to call Sakura, the girl he met on the bus. Over the next few nights, a living spirit resembling a teenage version of Miss Psyche appears in Kafka's room. Intrigued, he listens to the song Kafka on the Shore and begins to believe that he and Miss Psyche are being drawn together. He also begins to suspect more and more strongly that Miss Psyche is his mother, although she denies it. Soon, Kafka and the real Miss Psyche begin to have a physical relationship. She sees in him a likeness to her dead boyfriend, while he wants to make up for his damaged childhood. The police now have a lot of work to do, as there are no clues, no murder weapons, and no fingerprints on the crime scene. While Kafka is not suspected of murdering his father, he could not have made it to Tokyo and back to Takamatsu in 4 hours. He is still wanted for questioning. The police are not giving away anything, but they feel that Kafka has an accomplice, an old man in his 60s. Both Kafka and the old man have originated from Nakano, and they are both now in Takamatsu. Too much of a coincidence. Nakata is a huge suspect, especially after the fish rained from the sky. As the police intensify the search for Kafka's father's killer, Hoshino and Nakata relocate to an apartment provided by Colonel Sanders. They begin driving around the city as they try to determine what to do next. Oshima, also wary of the intensifying search, brings Kafka back to the cabin in the mountains and asks him to lie low. Kafka is depressed and feels trapped by his father's prophecy. He had a dream in which he raped Sakura. So he feels he has killed his father and slept with his mother and sister. Hoping to escape or face death, he ventures into the enchanted forest. In the forest, he comes across some people who have seemingly got trapped in parallel worlds, perhaps because they did not get back before the entrance stones were closed. Somehow Kafka, being a smart boy, he always marked his trail and he always managed to find his way back to Oshima's cabin. After days of aimless driving, Nakata and Hoshino stumble upon the Komura Memorial Library, and Nakata feels pulled to go inside. There, he meets and talks with Miss Psyche. She is, it seems, expecting him. And here, there is yet another link between Kafka and Nakata, Miss Psyche. However, the two protagonists are not destined to meet. Both Miss Psyche and Nakata, it is understood, had open entrance stones when they were young, and now these stones have to be closed to restore balance in the universe. But closing the stones brings casualties. When Oshima goes to Miss Psyche's office at the end of the day, he finds her face down on her desk, dead. And when Hoshino and Nakata return to the apartment, Nakata too dies in his sleep. Both have probably had cardiac arrests. After a couple of days, Hoshino is puzzling over what to do with the entrance stone when a black cat arrives and tells Hoshino that he will need to kill something that will attempt to get through the entrance. Perhaps it is Nakata's spirit talking to Hoshino through the cat, but now Hoshino suddenly also is able to understand cats. Sure enough, a long, pale, slippery creature emerges from Nakata's corpse and begins to make its way to the stone. Hoshino tries unsuccessfully to kill it and realizes he must close the entrance by flipping the stone over. Once again, it takes nearly all his strength, but he is successful. He is then able to kill the creature. Vowing to hold on to Nakata's memory, Hoshino lifts the stone, heads out of the apartment, returns it to the shrine, makes an anonymous call to the police telling them about this dead body in the apartment, and disappears. Meanwhile, in the cabin in the ravine, the middle-aged Miss Psyche arrives and tells Kafka that he must leave the valley. Miss Psyche makes him promise that he will return to his home. Kafka goes back to the library where he tells Oshima he has decided to return to school in Tokyo. He said he will first go to the police and talk to them and answer all questions, promising Oshima to meet again someday. On the phone, Kafka also says goodbye to Sakura, fondly calling her his sister. So when he came to Takamatsu, he has no friends, but now he's leaving, he has two. Thinking about all that has happened to him, Kafka gets on the train to return home. Kafka the teen is able to find closure as he rides home to face his legacy and claim his inheritance. For me, the title gains significance at the end because I imagine this 15-year-old boy on a beach looking out to the sea. He's perhaps thinking of his future life journeys. Who knows where life will take him? There are endless possibilities. He will probably graduate and become a fitness guru or a sportsman or a musician, a songwriter, or an author or a scholar. And on this positive vibe, the book ends. That's it, folks.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you, Sheena.
It's
Mm,
500
one-
pages long, but I just managed to sort of try to present it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I'll say that again. How many pages long?
About 500 plus.
You know, that was going to be my first question. How long is this novel? Because so much happens.
Yeah.
My
Oh, and
goodness.
I haven't put 75% of what happens, but anyway.
You've done a great job of trying to
You can't.
present it to us. Seems
Sorry, you read it?
No, I haven't read it. I'm just
Okay.
saying that it's just you have tried at various stages to to connect things, and it seems just so bizarre.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like we
And
are reading the
Kafka
book
has
without reading it, you know. Sheena is reading it out for
Ah.
us.
In
Sheena,
fact, when you read the book, chapter 1 is
Wonderful.
Kafka, chapter 2 is Nakata, and so on. So I really tried to combine because otherwise it's jarring. You know? Yeah.
mm,
Sorry,
after
what's
that
the
brilliant
question?
yeah, after that
lovely
brilliant
illustrations
presentation, we had to
explaining
at
it
least
to us.
see you. Oh man. Okay, come on, folks. Questions.
Questions.
Ooh. So
I'm sorry?
What's the takeaway from this? The story is very mystical, interesting. But what's the takeaway from
Who's
this
asking
for
this?
our?
Who's asking
I'm
the question?
Varsha.
Varsha.
Oh, okay.
With I think the takeaway is the positivity that can happen, because this guy, he runs away from home. He doesn't ever want to go back. And at the end, he goes back because he realizes that there's a future for him waiting. So he decided, because his father was a noted world famous sculptor with, so very rich, very affluent. So I think he decides to go back and to continue school and to do something of himself.
In a normal way.
Yeah, hopefully,
That's
because
nice to
nothing
know.
normal happens in Murakami books.
Yeah, I
Nothing.
know. I
Yeah.
know. But fir
So
bhi,
what changed
somewhat normal.
for him? So what changed for him? Because if he's going back to his old normal life, what is it that this experience, which I suppose this experience is, at a symbolic and a metaphorical level as well. What
Yeah.
changed for him, do you think? To go back to the mere
The
ordinary.
change that he wanted to drop out from school. He never wanted to go back to school, and suddenly now he wants to go back. He's
Why?
his whole, because Miss Psyche told him to do that. She used to tell him, you have to go back. You have to promise me. You cannot leave things. You have to go back home. You have to go back to your roots, and you have to pick them up and start again.
There's
So I
one
think
more
that's why he
thing.
goes back.
There's
Yeah.
one. There's one more thing. Now his cruel father
Yeah.
is gone, so he has that freedom to live his life the way he wants. I
Yeah.
think that could also have been an attraction for him to go back home.
Yeah. Again, whatever we hear about the father is what Kafka is telling us. Okay, the father, Koichi Tamura, never appears as a character. It's all hearsay. It's
Yeah.
Kafka keeps talking about his father, so you piece everything together. So we don't know if the father was cruel,
Yeah, but
because
in
there
his
are always
mind,
two sides to a story, right? So this is what we have got from Kafka. But yeah, they didn't have a great relationship. They never ate meals together. They never spent time together. He never went out with on trips with his dad. His dad was always going to New York and here and there. So I guess, yes, that freedom that he's got, he goes back and he has the money. What the hell? Lots of money at 15, yeah.
But he's just a kid, He's only
Just a
15
kid,
years
yeah. But
old.
as I mentioned, he's very, very precocious.
Can I just
Okay.
make a comment rather than ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah. Sheena, you told us that you've not even given us the full gist, because there's so many incidents that happen in this book, and you've given us about 25% and 75%. So from that point of view, I feel that it's an extremely complex and complicated book. I mean, the story itself, if you think in terms of the number of incidents that make the narrative go forward, seems very complicated. And also it's complicated in terms of psychology of characters, complicated in terms of where the reality ends and surrealism begins. Sometimes it might go into magic realism. I don't know. I'm not very sure. Now, having said all that, do you think at the end it convinces you? Does the characters return home convince you?
In what way?
In the way that the author has used various styles of writing, and evoking with the real now and the not so real now and the mythological and the animal world and so on, does it convince?
I feel that he's left it for a sequel, but he doesn't write sequels ever. He could write a sequel, but Murakami generally, I think there's only one book which has 2 or 3 parts. Wind and Chronicles of the Wind and Pinball Machine. I think those were written in 3 parts. But otherwise, he never writes sequels. He just ends it there, and then you do what you want with the ending.
But at the
I'm not sure. Yeah, I know what you're trying to say. You're trying to say there's so much of fantasy, and then
There's
suddenly
everything,
it
yeah,
becomes
yeah.
normal. He's going home. What's
Yeah.
going to happen to him? I don't know. My guess is as good as yours.
I read this book about 10 years back, and read this book about 10 years back, and I went through the whole book. The story was interesting enough, but it left me with no like conviction, no real feeling that anything at all happens in the story. I mean, it was just like a kind of, an adolescent adventure or something, and then he goes back.
Yeah, it is a fantasy novel, as I said at the outset. It's just
So
fantasy. So you leave your brain on the side and you read it. Yeah,
I know
that's
I wasn't able to do that.
I see. Okay,
I wasn't able to do that. I wanted something more out of it,
I see.
I suppose what
some message, some moral. I wanted
Uh,
something out of it.
some
I
yeah,
point.
didn't get.
I don't think you can get that from Murakami. At least a lot of his
No,
novels are fantasy
some of his
novels.
short stories are very good.
Yeah, but
Some of his
again,
short
if
stories
you
are very
notice
good.
about his short stories, he leaves something unfinished. He has this style.
He leaves an open ending.
Yes, yes.
He was
So,
very
but
surprised that girl Psyche asked him to go back. But
Yeah.
I didn't quite get the reason for his wanting to leave his house in the first place.
Because of that omen,
Because of the omen.
Because of the
the
prophecy.
The
Oedipal
Oedipus
omen.
story, na? Oedipus
Yeah,
story.
I think that is reason enough.
That
Okay.
is the
And
reason he gives. He just,
especially,
he looks at himself in the mirror, and he's looking at his face, and he's looking at everything, and he hates his face. He's looking at his eyebrows, and he wishes I could change my genetic makeup, not just the way I look, but what is inside me, because he feels that omen is programmed inside his psyche, and he wishes that he could change everything, and he feels that by running away he can escape, but he doesn't escape, and we never know if Miss Psyche is his mother or not, okay, because she never answers his question.
there's too much fantasy in it.
Too much
It's
fantasy, like, yeah.
like, you can't really make sense out of it.
Yeah.
yes.
You can't decide, okay, this is the metaphor for this,
I
or this
think
is
in
what he
magic,
means.
I
in
mean,
magic
if he
realism
had
or
left the
something.
house with a certain purpose and then encountered many different things in his life and then finally returned because of things that happened, if that was, now he's grown up, he's understood more of the world, more of the real world, more of the enchanted world, and he's returned. If that were the
Could be. It
story,
I
could
then
be
think,
I can
that.
understand.
But he's
Yes.
still 15 years old. He may have grown up mentally, but not much time has passed, maybe just a month or so.
Oh,
but
Okay,
I
but that
think,
1 month has changed him so much.
I think
So
in
much has
magic
happened.
realism, I think you're not supposed to look for sense anyway.
No, you're not
You-
supposed to.
You're
This is
just
what I'm
supposed to
trying to say.
experience. Yeah, you're supposed to experience
Yeah,
whatever the author is saying.
and
You know,
I have read it 3 times, and each time I've come away with something different. I just love this book. Yeah,
Okay. So is the
yeah.
writing very sort of enchanting? I
The
mean, what do you
writing
say
is
about
very
the writing?
simple. His writing is, the beauty of Murakami's success is that he can take ordinary sentences and just unfurl them like that, like a magician, and then he creates a different world. There's nothing exceptional about his writing, but as Archana,
It's
as
interesting. Yes.
Archana pointed out earlier this morning when we were having a chat, he is extremely knowledgeable about music and so many things. Because as I said, he owned a jazz bar before he became a writer. And he brings all that knowledge into his books, into his writing. He'll tell you about Beethoven, Haydn, this trio, this one. And it's amazing, the wealth of knowledge this man brings into his worlds.
but
Yeah.
Sheena, if you're so impressed, you have to give a lot of credit to the translators.
Yes, I do. And his name is Philip Gabriel. But if I sat and gave you all these details, I would have still been talking on this book because I I knew there would be a lot of questions. Murakami uses two, or his publisher uses two translators, and for all his books, which have been translated into English, one is J. Rubin and one is Philip Gabriel. And this book has been translated by Philip Gabriel. And as Archana pointed out, she feels it's so beautifully translated that she feels it was originally written in English, not in Japanese.
Well, that's good. That's always a good feeling.
Yeah.
Successful translation, let's say.
Sheena, you had presented IQ84 as well, I think.
Yeah,
Hadn't you?
1Q84. Yes.
1Q84.
Some time
1Q84.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is even
So-
more fantastic than this one, by the
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
So you have a great capacity, I think, to absorb
Great books. Yeah.
something which seems so, nebulous, which has so many different strands,
Yeah,
which
yeah. As I
say,
said, you don't have to say why this happened or think why this happened, what is going to happen to him. I don't really care. The book's finished, it's over. Time to move on to another book, you know? So I'm not going to think so much.
So
I
in the
enjoyed it. I think if I have to read it again, I might read it after a few years again because I loved it so much.
so
Wow.
in the book,
Especially
Sheena,
the part, I want to read to you all the part where when this guy goes to the police station and how the officer doesn't believe him. That part is hilarious, you know? Yeah.
so Sheena, in the book, this Kafka and Nakata never meet. Is it?
Never meet. They never meet. Because when
Only
Nakata
because-
goes to the library, Kafka is in the cabin in the mountains. So they don't meet. It's so sad, I thought. They're so different, right? I mean, one is a voracious reader and one is an illiterate man, and he's a very talented chappie. He's first of all, he makes this beautiful antique furniture, and when he lost the ability to talk to cats, then he got the ability to make things fall from the sky. Like he would do that to save people. Like if he saw that some guy is being beaten up in a parking lot, right? Like he saw 10 motorcyclists are beating up one guy. So he got upset and he tried to interfere, and they told him, we'll kill you as well. So he just takes his umbrella, does that. And all these leeches fall from the sky. Okay. So he saves lives. Yeah. Interesting. Whoever's
Very.
going to read the book has to read that passage when he goes to the police station.
Sheena, why don't you read it out to us? Give us a taste of the writing.
Does anybody know which chapter it happened in?
It should be early on.
Yeah.
Uh,
I wish I had marked it because it's a little long and I said I will not have time. I think it's chapter 16 or something.
Monali, you're there? I see
Yeah.
you.
I'll just read it.
Monali?
Chapter 18.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Nakata walked quickly towards the station and went to a police box near the shopping district. A young officer was seated at a desk inside, working intently on some papers. Nakata slid open the glass door. Good evening. Sorry to bother you, because he's a very well-mannered man. Good evening, the policeman replied. He looked up from the paperwork and gave Nakata a once-over. Basically, a nice, harmless old man was his professional assessment, most likely stopping to ask directions. Standing at the entrance, Nakata removed his hat and stuffed it in his pocket, then took a handkerchief from the other pocket and blew his nose. Is there something I can do for you? The policeman asked. Yes, there is. I just murdered somebody. The policeman dropped his pen on the desk and stared open-mouthed at the old man. For a moment, he was speechless. What the? Why don't you sit down? He said dubiously, pointing to a chair opposite him. He reached out and checked that he had his pistol, his baton, and handcuffs on him. Thank you, Nakata said and sat down. Back held straight, hands resting in his lap, he looked straight at the officer. So what you're saying is you killed somebody. Yes, Nakata killed a person with a knife. Just a little while ago, Nakata admitted. The young officer took out a form, glanced at the clock on the wall, and noted down the time and the statement about a knifing. I'll need your name and address. So he says, my name is Satoru Nakata, and my address is... Just a moment, what characters do you write your name with? I don't know about characters. I'm sorry, but I can't write or read either. The officer frowned. You're telling me you can't read at all? You can't even write your name? That's correct. Until I was 9, I could read and write, but then there was an incident, and after that I can't. Nakata is not too bright. The officer sighed and laid down his pen. I can't fill out the form. if I don't know your name, how your name is written. I apologize. Do you have any family? Nakata's all alone. I have no family and no job. It's pretty late and I suggest you go on home. So what's happening is that he was not taken seriously, okay? But so the policeman dismisses him and he is nearing the end of his shift and he wanted to finish up all his paperwork before he went off duty. And then he was meeting a friend at a pub and he was looking forward to his drink. But Nakata gave him a harsh look and shook his head. No, sir. Nakata wants to tell everything while he still remembers it. If I wait until tomorrow, I might forget something important. Nakata, he tells him the whole story. He was in this empty lot and I've never been to that part of town before, but I'm pretty sure it's in Nakano Ward. Inside the house was a man named Johnny Walker who had on a funny black hat, a very sort of high sort of hat. In the fridge in the kitchen, there were rows of cats' heads. Now, how is the police going to believe this? About 20 or so, I'd say. He collects cats, cuts off their heads with a saw and eats their hearts.
Oh.
And then he's going to use that to make a flute, to make a special kind of flute. Right in front of Nakata, Johnny Walker killed Mr. Kawamura with a knife and several other cats. He cut open their stomach with a knife. He was going to kill Goma and Mimi, but then Nakata used a knife to kill Johnny Walker. And then the young policeman had listened to the whole story with a vacant look and didn't understand much of what the old man was getting at. Goma, Johnny Walker, I understand, he says. Then the policeman pretends to fill out this form, but he doesn't do it. The next day, sure enough, when the sardines and the mackerel rained from the sky, and the body was found by the housekeeper, then the police realized that the old man was not talking nonsense. It was all true. But by then it was too late. And of course, this officer was disciplined, but then that's another story. But it was hilarious when I was reading that part loudly to myself. Yeah.
But is there a kind of emotion in the book, or it's just a cold recounting?
It is emotional in parts, yes, especially the Nakata part. Yeah, you really feel sorry for him. Because what happened to him was not his fault, right? Yeah. I mean, he was normal until he was not. Any
So,
other questions?
all these things happen. And you're saying that we should not question the realism of it and, just take the experience and move on, which is fine, which is fine. I mean, other writers expect that too. But ultimately, the whole experience of the entirety of the book should add up to something. I mean, it should add up to something. You should be able to say something about the book.
That's what I meant. I didn't find anything to remember and keep. It was just good reading. All these incidents were fun, entertaining, all that. So
But
you could
good
skip
reading,
through the book.
good
You
reading
could
is
actually
important,
skip
right?
through the book.
It's entertaining.
It's entertaining. It wasn't boring,
No.
but there was nothing to take away.
But why must we always take away things from books we read? I mean, we watch so much of crap on television, and we don't take
Oh,
away
those are
much.
all, that's all just for
It's just
pastime,
passing time, right? Yeah.
passing time. But this book is so
This is
big,
good
and it
literature.
took me
No,
nearly
I
3
think
weeks to
that I think before all of you are, criticizing it and banning it, please try and to start reading it.
And
I've already
actually,
read it.
Once
actually,
if I
it's
have done
like
it 3 times, okay?
his
Oh, I've already
description of his
read it
forest.
and didn't quite appreciate it.
Sorry?
He's quite beautiful, his descriptions. I mean, he actually transports you into those
Yes, he does.
forests and
That
those
way is quite
and the world of
convincing,
music, and you learn so much about music of Beethoven and Haydn, and also his emotions and what the boy is going through. It's such a struggle for him at this young age, and yet he overcomes it all to try and go back to life instead of ending his life that he started out with, wanting to just.
Yeah, there were times in the forest when he was thinking of killing himself, but he
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
I was just thinking this morning because I think that it has become a Broadway play some years ago. I don't know how they would have shown that because the magic and all that. But I feel that if it became a Disney movie, it would be great. You know, an animated Disney movie.
Animated.
Yeah, it would be such a nice movie if they could edit the
The
boring parts
cats,
and make a
the
nice movie.
I
Yeah,
don't think
yeah,
Disney's going to come with the take the
yeah.
cats, all
The
decapitated
cat
cats, etc.
part. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That
I
part they
know.
will not do.
Yeah. That
Okay.
part can be edited, I guess. I don't know how, because it's integral to the story.
Yeah.
Sheena, I want to tell you that I tried reading Murakami many years ago, and I just couldn't get through, and I can't remember the name of the book now, but I know that I just couldn't. I lingered through the book, and I was wondering, what is this man? And people speak so highly about him, and I just couldn't get through, and I never touched Murakami after that. The next time I encountered Murakami was during our storytelling sessions, and somebody did a short story on Murakami, and I thought,
Uh,
oh, there's hope. Those short stories were really nice, and I could just about do the short stories. I heard you start today, and I thought, my God, I must get back to reading a Murakami. Maybe I'm judging him wrong. Till you got to the point about the cats, and I'm a cat person. I have two at home sitting right here next to me. So you lost me on that one, but I promise. I just think with the enthusiasm that you speak with about Murakami, that I should get back to reading one of his books. So
just to
I
make you happy, I first picked up Murakami when I was quite young. It was called Hard Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World. Is that the book that you read? Because I couldn't make head nor tail of that book, and it put me off for a decade. I didn't touch him. Okay. And then I picked up 1Q84. Again, extremely fantastic, but I just loved that world that he created. And I read that also 2 times, and it's about 900 pages long. So, yeah.
Sunita, if you remember, Suyash Kabra
Yeah.
had presented,
He presented, right?
yeah, he did 3 novels by Murakami. And we started together, he said he was interested in Murakami, and I had just borrowed one of Murakami's novels from the library. And I said, hey, I'm just starting this one. And so we sort of embarked on Murakami together. But man, he, flourished, as it were. He went on, and did not take to Murakami at all.
Yeah,
There is
well,
this whole thing
some you
about,
like him or you hate him, right?
yeah, crazy things happening. Okay, I'm all right with that. Happens in a lot of literature. But as I said, ultimately, when the whole thing is done with, it should mean something. It should have implied something. It should have said something to you. And I didn't feel that
It had an
Murakami.
impact, some impact, which this book
No,
failed
but I
to.
think it depends on the person. Like Sheena has read the book 3 times, so obviously it had an impact on her,
Exactly.
and it continues to have because she wants to read it once more. So I think it depends
No.
also on the kind of books you like, and what your mind space
Of
is.
course, this is
I
to
think,
your taste, or it's
yeah,
not to your.
absolutely.
And there are a lot of people. I mean, she's in very good company because
Yeah.
most people do love it.
Yeah. I mean, I've read Men Without Women, the short story collection. I mean, again, I'm not a magic realism kind of a person. I'm probably too practical for that. So I definitely need to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. So it didn't really appeal to me the way it is because there were short stories I was able to probably get through. I probably will not be able to get through a book. Short stories, yes.
When Kafka
Only-
was released, he answered some, I don't know, 2,000 questions from his Japanese fans, and he answered every question. But unfortunately, those were never translated into English, so we don't know what he said. He explained all the riddles and everything, it seems, but we don't have
Okay.
access to all that. Yeah.
I also
But-
read another book, Blind Willow Sleeping Woman or something. There's one book.
Yes. I think I read that too. Well, not all his books are magical fantasy and all that. Some of them are normal, like Norwegian Wood. That's quite a nice book also.
Blind
Yeah.
Willow Sleeping Woman. Yes, I remember that, and the short stories were really good. I had a collection of short stories by Murakami. But this particular book, which took me 3 weeks to read, and I wouldn't give up because I wanted to know what happens in it. I enjoyed it. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. this different incidents, they caught your attention. But on the whole, I found the book a little too weird.
So this is why he has not won a major prize like the Booker or the Pulitzer or whatever it is. Pulitzer is for American books, I guess, but he has not won the Nobel. I think because the committees think like you think. So maybe he probably won't win any of those prizes, but he doesn't need to because he has such a large stature.
Oh yeah, iconic.
In literature,
Iconic.
in
Yes.
modern literature anyway. Yeah.
Okay. I just wondered whether the some people who haven't spoken and who are not visible also would like to weigh in. So Sanjay, would you like to? Would you like to just,
Yeah,
you
hi,
know,
can you
yes.
hear me? Yeah, I read this book a few years ago, about 5, 6 years ago, and I came away with the impression that you have to be a Murakami to get away with something as weird as this. Because, I mean, I get the point about surrealism and all, and distortion of space, time, and identity. All that's very well. And if probably Picasso were to write a book, he would probably come up with something like this. But there can be something like excessive ambiguity, and no work should be so entirely devoid of logical consistency as this book is. If I just put together a lot of different scenes, it doesn't add up to a movie. There has to be some skeletal storyline somewhere. That's my take. Obviously, people will differ. I see that.
You know,
But of course,
Sanjay, in with modernism, this is one of the things that writers went against. That linear progression
fair enough,
of a
fair enough.
storyline, the
No,
logic, the rationality. So they deliberately went against that. So, you
yeah,
know,
I take your point. I mean, nobody is talking about Thomas Hardy or Charles Dickens. Those days are gone. That was 250 years ago. But even allowing for the flexibility that magical realism provides, I think there can be something like excessive magical realism.
yeah.
This is,
Well,
of
I'm
course,
with you.
this is my point of view, and people can differ. But I must say this, that he is a writer of great ability, in the sense that you can't get away with the fish falling from the skies and stuff like that, unless you have a certain degree of ability to. I mean, why didn't I just throw away the book and say this is trash? I'm never going to spend time on this. I went on reading, and I think in that lies some kind of author's triumph. I would say that, in spite you disagree with the plot so vehemently, and yet you go on reading. So at some level, it does hold your interest, and for that we must give him credit.
Nicely
That's
put.
what I thought about.
I think nicely put. Yes, yes, indeed. And I'm total agreement with you, by the way, Sanjay. Monali, would you like to?
But more,
Hmm.
I was not very interested, etc. But now I'm slowly finding it. It may be a wonderful and saying, why should you have the classical style of writing? Why can't you have this happening and that happening? Things coming out. As someone said, it is Picasso again.
I know that's a very
that's
good
it.
comparison, I think.
That's how it
Yeah.
is. It should be. It makes me start thinking that, something to read quietly. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
Satish. So Monali, I would be interested to know what you have thought of all this. Monali? Yeah,
Hello,
there
ma'am.
you are. Hi there.
Hi, ma'am.
Long time
How
no
are you?
see. How are you?
I'm good, ma'am. So, ma'am, in fact, I found the presentation was amazing, Sheena, ma'am. I really
Yes,
loved your presentation.
as
It was very
always.
good.
Agreed.
Always.
Yes, in fact, I had not read the book, but then I could almost imagine everything going on just like a movie. But still, it was very difficult to believe, if I must say. Of course, it should be surrealistic and random and so on. But then uh, the idea about Johnny Walker being somebody who kills cats and wants to make something else out of cats. It seemed like very weird to me. I mean, so that was one part of it. Even the scene wherein all the schoolboys were losing consciousness and then they gained consciousness and then they did not have the memory of that incident. Um, it didn't seem to sort of um, meet a certain purpose. So that was my observation. Also, this idea of getting into the library, I still do not understand what is the purpose of having somebody who is transgender in that particular story. Is there a purpose at all, or is it just kind of
Adding
a
to the
depiction?
weird.
Also, this idea of getting into the library, I still do not understand what is the purpose of having somebody who is transgender in that particular story. Is there a purpose at all, or is it just kind of
Adding
a
to the
depiction?
weirdness.
Very random to me. So yes, I mean, overall the story figure out these things seem very random to me. So yes, I mean, overall the story may have some kind, as um the previous speaker just mentioned, that the story does have some kind of merit, otherwise it wouldn't have held our attention for so long. But having said that, I still do not understand the logic of these things. So had it still been something like something out of Beckett's plays, I would have still been able to sort of put that in place and say, okay, all reality do not make sense. But then this is far too weird for me. I mean, I'm not taking this. So thank you very
Yeah.
much.
I also wondered, when he says he needs a place to stay. Oh, where has he
Yes.
been staying
Saying,
until then?
yeah,
Who's that?
Yes.
Sorry, who's that?
Mohini was saying that, but
Me,
even
I
I
was
was wondering,
asking.
where
Who
was he
needs
I
to
staying?
stay?
Yeah, where was he
Kafka.
staying till he
Kafka.
Kafka.
Kafka stayed in a hotel in Takamatsu. I said that.
Yeah.
He checks
Mm.
into a
He said
hotel. But again, that's another very long story. He quotes his YMCA membership and he, manages to get a discount. And then the hotel checks up on him because he still looks very young. And they wanted to really, find out whether what he's saying, he's going to the library. Is he really going to this library? So they do a cross reference the next day. And yes, he has gone to this library. And that's how the police was able to track him. That, they went to the hotel. They know that he's connected with this library. But I can't give you all those details because
Yes, yes,
there's
yes,
no
yes. Of
time.
course.
And there is a story about why Oshima is transgender, but that's another long story.
Ah, there
Quite
you are, you
interesting
see.
again.
But
Quite
there's so many
interesting.
strands, so many strands to this story.
Yeah.
And
And
that
then Colonel Sanders, what's his name? Johnny Walker killing cats. You know what Colonel Sanders does? He's a pimp. He supplies women. So it's quite funny. I removed that
it's a
part out because it had no. See, the cat killing was
connection. Yeah,
relevant to
yeah.
the story, but the pimp part didn't have any relevance to the story. So I just removed it.
Okay.
I'm actually surprised that the brand owners haven't
I
sued
know.
Haven't said
I
Murakami
know.
anything.
because
Yeah.
they're standards. And Johnny Walker and Colonel
Yeah.
Sanders.
Yeah.
I'm surprised too, but then he says that we are concepts, we are spirits. That's what
Right.
Colonel Sanders says. I'm not real. I've just, taken on this. I wanted to do Mickey Mouse, but you know how Disney is about their brands. So I didn't do Mickey Mouse. So I did KFC instead. So something like that.
American
Yeah.
capitalism at its
Yeah.
worst.
Yeah.
India, come and sit down.
I think he
So,
likes to shock. He likes to introduce little shocks in his
But he
book.
does it in a very calm and cool manner. He'll just put
He
that in.
does, but here you are sailing along with his beautiful descriptions, and then suddenly something of shock value enters, and which is either bizarre, weird, or
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of writers, of course, enjoy that, the shock value of what they're saying. That goes without saying. Okay, now, Mike, what about you? Mike, would you like to weigh
Yeah,
in?
yeah. Hi. I mean, this was my first attendance here. It was really good to be part of this, and really
Aren't you
nice to
proud
hear
of
my
your
sister
sister?
speak. Yeah, I think very interesting, and again, it's a lot of fiction, and I mean, that comparison with entertainment with movies is what comes across. But I'm also wondering how much of this has to do with the writer's reflection of where Japanese society is, the
Hmm.
part about spirits, and just I mean, looking up even fish falling from the sky. I mean, it might sound fictional, but it's actually happened. So, so I don't know.
That sounded so Dr. Seuss, you know?
Yeah, but I mean that phenomena has happened. I mean, it's very rare, but it has happened. But yeah, it's so much variety and all that. Well presented. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And this
wow.
part about somebody said that they couldn't believe, couldn't buy this part about the mass hypnotism of school children. But he quotes two incidents which happened in Australia and somewhere else, and I think those are
Yeah.
documented, which they had happened.
Yes.
And then the children or whoever has no memory, it's like a
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like a group hypnotism,
There's
because
a
somebody
picnic.
saw a B-59 bomber flying in the sky because it was World War II. So they feel that maybe, you know, the Americans dropped gas or something. So there were a lot of theories that were going around then.
In
Yeah.
Australia,
So
it happened. They'd
basically,
gone for a picnic, a
Correct,
group of
correct.
children,
He
and the
mentions,
teacher had
he
gone for a picnic,
mentions,
and yeah.
And I think in the UK as well, he mentions two incidents which are documented.
hmm,
So he probably took his idea from there. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I
Very
think
captivatingly presented, Sheena, as usual.
Thank
I
you.
really look forward to it.
you know, that
Your
compliment I gave you, you know, Sheena, the compliment I gave you at the beginning, you know, you have justified it.
Okay.
no, and
I
always
didn't like the book, guys,
Presentation.
so I can't, I mean, I'm happy with the criticism, I'm happy with the appreciation, because I can't take credit for writing this book.
no, but you can take credit for the presentation, and that I mean
Exactly.
all the way you put it. I know where you get your ideas from. It is a very artistically done, and it's fantastic.
Beautifully.
After I saw it, I said, oh yes, of course it makes sense. When you put that photo there, you put that photo here. But on my own, definitely wouldn't have thought of it ever.
Yeah, she
But
does a
and
really
I
good
think
job.
See,
Well,
my
but now we know.
but all of us who've read the book will know how difficult it is to compress it into a presentation the way you did it, Sheena.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that
what I told Archana,
that's-
like what to
I mean, whether
keep
you
and
like the
what
book
to
or you
throw.
don't like the book, it's quite a job. It's very
Yeah.
well done. Very well done.
Indeed, indeed, totally, totally.
And I'm
Yeah.
really waiting for this 1200-page book, which is going to come out in November.
Okay. Well, Sheena, thank you very much.
insatiable.
Excellent presentation. Absolutely excellent. And those of us who have read the book, I'm sure, revisited it very productively and sort of
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
clarified your ideas.
Yes.
Those of us who haven't read the book learned something. I mean, I learned something huge. I learned about this book, which I have not read, and you're right, I'm not likely to read. Okay. Murakami is not to my taste, I find, but I'm quite fascinated by his imagination. I'm in awe of his imagination, the things he can think up, the things he puts in his book. Ooh la la. I mean, it's, just out of this world. So, Sheena, thank you very much. And everyone who is here today, thank you so much for coming, for participating, for putting on your thinking caps, because that's what the book club is all about, isn't it? Putting on your thinking caps, all right? Thinking out of the box. And in that, Sheena, the book you chose today was so out of the box.
Mm.
And you led us there. You made us go out of our little boxes too. So that's wonderful, wonderful experience. Thank you very much. Now, next time, now, you must have seen that little note that I put in that we have an author interaction. So that's a little up in the air. I'm not 100% sure because Arifa keeps changing her mind,
Oh.
She wants it quickly, the urgency of a new release, of course.
No, it's not
Then-
new. It was released last year, but I know why she wants it, because it has just been nominated for the Asian Prize. It's made it to the 6 books which are in the short list. So
There you
she
are.
can
So
win
that
the Asian Prize
that
for
sense of
fiction
urgency.
this year.
But then she
Yeah,
also wants to give you time to get the book and read it.
exactly.
I-
I've ordered it, but it's not coming before Saturday. That's the
Yeah.
thing. So how to read?
So I'm not 100% sure what's happening, but of course you will know because I'll put it in the WhatsApp group. So you will know, but I think 75% it will happen next Sunday is what I think.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. And if it happens, then my presentation of lessons in chemistry will go to July. Right? So, because we have a month.
It is July.
But
Right?
why can't you present it? We can have 3 books in 1 month.
No, we can, but the planning and all that is such that currently we want to. Okay. So let's see how it goes. We've had 3 in the past. We have had.
We
Let's
used to
see.
have 4. We used to 4, 5. We used to have.
Well, we used to have every Sunday. That's a different matter. Anyway, so everybody, thank you.
Thank you.
And those of you, Sunita has, of course, Runa has also, I think, given me dates for their presentation. If anyone hasn't, please do so. Okay. Okay. Thank you very
Thanks a
much.
lot.
See you
Bye.
next time.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye. You will
Thanks.
know what next
Enjoyed
time
it.
is in a day or two.
Yeah. That was
Okay.
great.
Bye
Sheena.
bye.
Thank you.
Happy
Bye.
reading.